We've just had a little walk up the canal side and a little bird or two twittering. It's easier for me because I'm looking out of the two big windows behind you. In both windows there's lovely trees bursting into leaf. And there were 4 little birds a moment ago, 2 in that window and 2 in that window. And I don't suggest you turn around, but just to tell you what's going on. And then a train went by. Just saw the top of it. But here we are. If we just listen, there's this sequence of sounds, isn't there? People downstairs talking. Little dog, pigeon. Life goes on, doesn't it? And sitting here in silence, there's a sense of, well, there's a space between the listener, isn't there, and what's going on. It's all change out there, and here we touch the changelessness, what doesn't change. That's really what our coming together is all about, really. All our meditation, all our religion, all our various spiritual practices. It's basically just discriminating between this world that comes to pass and that which doesn't. Two polarities, as it were. One's all change and the other's nothing changes. And the easiest possible way to access what doesn't change is simply to stop talking. It's such a marvellous thing to do, really. I know we're all meeting together, we're new friends, all excited and interested in each other, bubbling over with news and questions and all that, but it's nice for a few minutes and then it does steal us away, doesn't it? Takes over, really. Swallows us up. It's good just to stop talking for a few minutes and remind ourselves of this underlying silence. Well, I find it very comforting. Hope you will too. In a house like this, at this time, we're downstairs in the kitchen, it's the sort of action stage, isn't it? Things are happening and we are upstairs, endeavouring to keep quiet. Sort of, it's a balance, isn't it? It seems somehow one sort of keeps the other in balance. That's really why some of us refer to this as the work. It's sort of in a world that's a bit sort of over-worded, overactive. It's probably not a bad thing for some people to keep the balance by being still. Who knows, dears, how it works, but it seems a useful thing to do. We had an extraordinary day yesterday, caught up in rush hour traffic at Manchester Airport, and one thing after another happened to delay us. And there was our little group of people, perhaps not quite as noisy as the rest of them, sitting still, watching this extraordinary parade, performance of human activity swirling around us. It matters terribly when you get caught up in it and lost in the stress and hurry of it all. But just to sit quietly in a still point in the middle of it all, it becomes surprisingly okay, really. Even quite fun. We had a happy day, didn't we? Amazingly. Yes. Well, I did anyway. If any of you are sitting there bursting with questions, that would give me a start, wouldn't it? Gareth, dear, if you ask me any questions, do you believe or do I think? You really throw me, dear, because I'm not sure that I trust beliefs or thoughts. So I don't really like answering those sort of questions because, you see, a question like do I believe means do I, this wobbly creature called John Butler, believe? Well, you can see, you just look at me, dear, quite soon John Butler will just be in his coffin, won't he? So what's John Butler's belief have got a value about it? It's a very wobbly phenomenon, isn't it? Now then, much better, I suggest to you, just be present here now, feet on the floor, bottom on the chair, and just look out of the window, dear, at those leaves bursting into leaf, those lovely trees outside, spring growth bursting into leaf. Now, you know as well as I do that this time last year it was doing the same, wasn't it? But this year the trees are just that little bit bigger, aren't they? So there's repetition. But you see, Gareth, all you've got to do is just observe, see what's in front of your nose, dear. And there's no better demonstration in answer to that question, in my experience, than to just observe nature. And I remember when I was a young man, also reading in books about this thing called karma, trying to think, how do they know? And then as a young farmer, I looked at my fields, dear, and I saw how it comes around year after year. And depending how I treat the land, so it reacts the following year. There's a carryover, isn't there? And then you think about your dreams. You wake up each morning and there's a carryover from yesterday, isn't there? To some extent, modified by your experience yesterday. And so it is, year by year life. And so by natural extension, it may have sense, make sense to say, well, there's something in it, isn't there? Maybe it is right. It's the experience. If we can learn from experience, it's a million times better than just, do I believe or not? You're closer to reality, dear. That's why belief and think is a product of the mind, isn't it? Because that's you're dealing with a more real and reliable demonstration of it. As you sow, so shall you reap. That's the old saying, isn't it? These old sayings, I trust them completely, dear. Common sense, stood the test of time. Well, I'll just tell you what happened to me this morning. We were having breakfast and talking, of course, because we just met each other. We were interested, a bit excited. So, we were talking. And just suddenly I must get out. We went out for a walk, just along the canal bank there. It's a nice, quiet walk. Immediately you just get outside, quiet. Then I started this silly gabbling kind of came out of my mouth, just sort of carrying on. It's like an infection, isn't it? So I said to Manjito something, just tell me to shut up. So I just shut up and just listened to the birds. That's why I asked you to listen to the birds just now. And immediately the relief of it. And this sort of, gramophone, this sort of repetitive talking just quietened down. There's a nice old lock there. We played around on that for a bit and walked home. Refreshed. There's nothing better than going out in the fresh air and having a little walk, dear. Just a little walk. It's an absolute lifesaver. It really is. And then you see, I can come back and hopefully be intelligent and useful to you. Claustrophobia. Over-peopled, over-talked, over-worded, over-computered, all these things. And you just have to sort of watch what your opportunities are. And sometimes you can escape, sometimes you can't. In Manchester Airport, we couldn't. We just had to sit there and endure it. But actually, once we found the still point, it wasn't so bad, was it? So, the trouble is we don't even think, we completely forget the existence of the still point, don't we? And when we forget, then, well, Jesus says we're lost sheep. And we've got to wait till the shepherd comes along. Memory, in this case, the grace of memory. And the only way you can strengthen memory is habit. Even if you only remember once a day. That's why to sit down twice a day and meditate is such a good habit. And if you can remember to pause every now and again, the more often you can learn to do that, the better. But it may take many years before it really sinks in. You good heart, dear boy, struggle on. You come to see your old friend, haven't you? That's nice. Just come back to stillness, you see. After a little bit of confusion, you see, talk running away with us, we have to just come back, see. Feet on the ground, bottom on the floor. This is absolutely 100%, this little exercise. Feet on the ground, bottom on the chair. Because the chair floor is still, isn't it? The floor is still and silent. So, darlings, if you want to find this great mysterious stillness, there's nothing better than this. even in a crazy office, Adam. The blessed presence of the floor beneath your feet. But you see, you don't need to change anything. You don't have to stop anything. It's not an either or. Look, the floor doesn't change. We can go absolutely crazy talking. Let's all have a, ding dong about the war. It makes no difference whatsoever to the floor. The floor is just serene and still and holding us. Doesn't matter at all. Peace, which is this, is completely unaffected by what's going on around it. Isn't it? It is, isn't it? Am I not right? Well, it's not a matter of either or. It's a matter of just opening up, just expanding a little bit more to allow awareness of the stillness of the floor, of the ground. This performance of man, dear, it's no big deal when you see it in the context of nature. Crazy things man does. Does the sun bother? Well, we don't know, do we? Maybe, I'm sure. They say the angels do weep over us. No doubt they do, but, these things all happen within, as it were, the everlasting arms, don't they? Within the greater love and providence of whatever you conceive God to be. That little dog was barking a few minutes ago. What was he upset about? You just took it in your stride, didn't you? You don't have to diminish the human tragedy to allow in this greater peace, do we? It's in its space and time, it's real enough. But the more we come into the presence, space and time itself melt away. What is there? What happened to us for 2 hours this morning in meditation? Where were these world tragedies? What happened to them? They sort of just faded out, didn't they? Only practice, Adam, dear. Practice. Well, that's all I've done, dear. I thought exactly as you, as a young man. Well, probably not quite exactly, but more enough to recognize it. Again, I'm lucky because I can just see through the window, you see, and there's the sunlight shining on the trees, and immediately I feel comforted and sort of safe somehow, back with the natural reality. I mean, even in your office, you work in an office, I suppose, right? There's a window, isn't there? Look out the window, dear. Do you see trees or the sky? Do you see the sky or just the next building? Enough to save your life, Adam. Just a little glimpse of the sky, the infinite, lovely sky, the freedom of the sky. There you are. You're like a prisoner in a dungeon looking up this little tiny life-saving square of sky. I'm serious, dear. I do this constantly. Look out of my window at the sky. I don't know anything better. In Christian tradition, the devil is a tempter, isn't he? He's a deceiver. Tempter and a deceiver. Steals us away. That's just how it seems, isn't it? The world literally tempts us, steals us away. So we're told to fight the good fight. Try to remember, be regular with our practice. Regularity is a tremendously important thing, because it's sort of like mechanical. It's like going to the toilet. You just do it without wanting to do it. It's just because it just carries you through the days, doesn't it? Something you do regularly. This is what I've always found useful. I tell you, lots of times I don't want to go to meditate. It's much easier not to, but just good habit makes me sit down and do it, and I'm usually glad I did afterwards. Just keep practicing, and then gradually we grow grow beyond this confusion of the mind. I've often described it as going up to a little aeroplane. Oh, we came in an aeroplane yesterday, and it was a super demonstration because the sky was a bit more obscure than it is this morning. So there was quite a long period between leaving the airport, going into this grey overcast, and in there, well, it seemed like a long time. You could neither see down or up. We were just in this sort of opaque greyness where you didn't know where you were going. And then gradually the cloud began to thin and we got out into the blue sky beyond. But it made me think how much of our life is just spent in this don't know state, don't know what to do or where to go. It's just like a layer of consciousness between lower consciousness and higher consciousness, which is we call the mind. But it's no more than just a layer, an intermediate layer of mental vibrations that we call the mind. But they acquire, we get stuck there. But with a bit of luck, meditation doesn't always, but a good meditation will take you beyond it. And then you see. You can look down and see the mind just like we look down on clouds from an aeroplane. And then you just get bored with it. See, it's said that we are saved by grace. Now, this sequence of events, where did it come from? How does it happen like that? It's not from you, is it? You didn't plan it. As far as we know, these things just happen. It said that the real things in life happen to us. Who knows it? What on earth am I doing at my age, sitting in front of a room of people like this? Why aren't I sitting on my farm, just enjoying the spring? Oh, who knows what we're destined for? Who knows? Any of us? What are we doing sitting here in Dublin on a spring morning? And another thing is that spiritual experience is never repeated. Well, each day isn't. It's never. No 2 days since the world began have ever been the same, have they? So even less in spiritual experience, which is more conscious than the more mundane worldly matters, it's never ever repeated. Have any of you ever meditated the same 2 days running? It's never the same, is it? So you won't go back to where you were, not in the same way, dear. It doesn't happen like that. There may be a variation of it, but it won't be quite the same. We're saved by, do you understand what I mean by grace? Grace is, if you like, the vibration, spiritual sunshine. It's like whatever it is that emanates from the primal cause of it all. In other words, it's not from me or you. It's that which causes things to happen. Grace. What are you here for? What is your destiny? God knows, dear, and I do not.